Sister announced she was taking custody of our younger brother, claiming I was unfit. Then I found messages showing she lied to gain access to his benefit money, leaving me to decide whether to expose her scheme or watch her damage his. I was 26 when everything with my sister blew up, and even now when I think back on it, my stomach gets tight because the whole thing felt wrong from the start, even if I tried to pretend it made sense. My name is Aiden, and I grew up in a small town in northern Illinois with my sister Mara, who is 34, and my younger brother Rowan, who is 15. Our mom died when I was 19, and our dad checked out slowly over the next few years and drifted into his own quiet world, half tired and half numb. So by the time Rowan was 10, I had already taken on most of the responsibility that should have been his. I was working part-time at a hardware store, going to community college for a tech program, and trying to keep things stable for him. That meant school runs, doctor visits, signing papers for things our dad forgot, and pulling Rowan out of fights when older kids picked on him because he is small for his age and has a mild speech delay that makes him nervous in groups. I never thought of myself as his parent. I just did what had to be done. Mara lived an hour away in a busy suburb outside Chicago with her boyfriend, later her fiancé, and then not her fiancé after they split, and she visited only when she had a reason that looked good on her social media. She worked in corporate recruiting. She liked clean apartments, fresh nails, and acting like she had climbed out of the same chaos we had but now lived on a higher floor. She always liked talking about responsibility, but she never liked doing the parts that took time or patience. Whenever she came by, she stayed for 2 hours, took pictures with Rowan, handed me a lecture, and left again with her plans for the night. So when she suddenly called me one Saturday morning, voice shaking with fake concern, and told me she had spoken to someone about my living situation and decided to file for emergency custody of Rowan because she believed I was not providing a stable environment, I nearly dropped my phone. I stood in the kitchen staring at the floor, and the fridge made that quiet hum it makes when it turns on, and for a moment that sound felt louder than her whole speech. She said she had talked to a lawyer. She said she had looked into benefits he could get with the right guardian. She said she was doing what was best for him because she cared. I kept asking her what she meant, why she thought I was unfit, what she thought I had done wrong, but she talked over me like she always did, sharp and steady, pushing her points like she had practiced them in a mirror. When I hung up, I found Rowan sitting on the couch holding his notebook. He looked at me with this worried question on his face, and I told him it was nothing, but my voice cracked a little and he knew something was wrong. I told him to focus on his homework and I stepped outside to get air. I kept replaying her words. Unfit. Unstable. Not enough structure. She did not know anything about our daily life. She did not see him laugh when we made pancakes. She did not see him get excited when he passed a math test he had studied for all week. She did not see the small wins that took effort and time and patience. But still, her claim hit something fragile inside me because I had worried about my own ability more than once. I had worried I was failing him in ways I could not see. My worst fear was becoming careless. So even though I knew she was reaching, her words landed. A week later, I got a letter from her lawyer saying she planned to move forward. She had listed out things she considered neglect. Old appliances. Not enough outdoor activities. No vacuum cleaner model listed on a household inventory page. It was ridiculous. It made me angry, then confused, then scared. I called her. She ignored me. I called again. Nothing. I drove to her place. She told me through her doorbell camera that she would not talk without her lawyer present. I stood there in the cold wind, looking at her nice apartment building, and thought, she wants something. She does not care about him. She wants something. I told myself to stay calm. I told myself to think. That night I went through everything I had saved for Rowan. School reports. Doctor notes. Counseling paperwork. I organized it into folders. I wrote down schedules. I planned for a fight I never asked for. I barely slept. 3 days later, I got a message from her by accident. She must have meant to send it to her friend, because she sent it directly to me. I opened it. It changed everything. She wrote, "He will qualify for the increased allowance if I am listed as guardian. The payout goes to the guardian account. Should cover half my rent." She added a laughing emoji. She added another message saying, "He is not even that hard to manage." He just needs someone who can play the system right. My hands shook. I sat down slowly. I kept reading the lines again because my brain refused to accept them at first. For years I had believed that even if she was selfish and dramatic, she would at least never use Rowan. But there it was. Her plan. Her reason. She wanted the money tied to his disability support. She wanted control because she thought it came with a check. She was willing to call me unfit to get it. I felt heat rise in my chest, and then everything went cold. I thought about what would happen if she won. Rowan moving into her apartment with strangers coming in and out. Her leaving him alone because she had social plans. Her losing patience and yelling when he stuttered. Her using him for money. I felt sick. I knew I had to decide fast. If I kept quiet, she might take him. If I exposed her, the whole family would blow up. Our dad would panic. Rowan would feel trapped in the middle. Our relatives would pick sides. And she would come after me harder because she hated losing. I kept pacing the room. I tried to breathe slower. I looked at the messages again. I told myself there was no choice. But there was fear. A lot of it. I had to protect him. I had to do it right. I had to think. And the truth hit me in a way that hurt. I had always known she could lie. I just never believed she would lie about something like this. I sat down at the table and placed my phone next to me. I told myself, you cannot let her win. You cannot let her get him. Not now. Not ever. Then I started planning what to do next. I woke up early the next morning because my mind would not settle. And when I looked at Rowan sleeping on the other couch with his hoodie pulled over his head, I felt a wave of pressure in my chest that made it hard to breathe for a moment because I knew everything I did from that point forward had to protect him even if it cost me peace with the rest of the family. I moved quietly to the kitchen and made coffee, and while the machine clicked I kept hearing the sound of Mara's messages repeating in my head. He will qualify. Covers half my rent. Not that hard to manage. Each sentence cut through any doubt I had tried to hold on to. I knew I needed proof that she was doing this for money, not for Rowan, and I already had the screenshots, but I wanted more. I wanted something that showed she never had his best interest in mind, something that would not just clear me but expose her. I looked through our old family group chat, the one we used to use before everyone started drifting apart, and found dozens of messages from me asking her to show up for events. School plays. Doctor meetings. Therapy updates. She ignored almost all of them. Sometimes she responded with one word. Sometimes she said she was busy. I took screenshots of those too. By the time Rowan woke up and shuffled into the kitchen rubbing his eyes, I had built a file on my laptop that outlined everything. He asked what I was doing. I told him I was working on something for school. That was not a full lie, because everything I did was to keep him in school, in therapy, in his own room, in his own life. He sat down at the table and asked if I wanted help making breakfast. I told him to sit and I would handle it. While we ate pancakes, he told me about a project he had to finish for Earth Science, and he smiled in that small, careful way he always did when he felt unsure about something. I told him I would help him later. Seeing him talk so normally while I felt like the world was shaking under me made me want to protect him even more. After breakfast, I sent a text to my Aunt Laura, who is 59 and one of the few people in the family who still acts with a little kindness. I wrote that I needed to talk. She texted back that she could call in an hour. I waited for that call and paced the living room. When she finally called, I stepped outside and told her everything. I kept my voice steady even when I felt my throat tighten. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she let out a long, quiet breath and said she had known something was off with Mara for a while, but she did not know it was this bad. She told me to hold on to the messages and not confront Mara yet. She also told me to go to social services before she filed anything officially, because once a claim entered the system I needed to be ahead of it, or I could get buried by her version of events. That advice made sense. It scared me, but it made sense. After the call, I grabbed the folder I had built and drove to the County Family Services office. The building smelled like old carpet and cheap air freshener. The chairs were plastic. People looked tired. I sat there with my files on my lap and tried to look confident even though I felt like I was about to explain my whole life to strangers. When they finally called my name, I met with a caseworker named Raymond who looked about 45 and had a warm but tired face. I explained the situation from the beginning. I told him about Mom dying, Dad fading, me taking over everything for Rowan. I told him about Mara's sudden decision and her claims that I was unfit. Then I showed him the messages. He read them slowly. His eyebrows moved up for a second when he got to the part about the benefit money. Then he looked at me. He asked questions about Rowan, school routines, health, counseling. He asked if I could provide documents. I handed over my folder and watched him go through everything carefully. When he finished, he said he did not see anything that suggested I was unfit. He said that in cases like this, motives mattered. He also said he could open a note in the system that would show I had come forward with concerns first, and that I was acting in good faith. He told me this would help. I felt something inside my chest loosen for the first time in days. I thanked him. I walked out into the sunlight feeling exhausted but steadier. When I got home, Rowan was sitting on the carpet sorting Legos. He looked up and asked if I was okay. I said yes. He nodded and handed me a piece of a base plate like he wanted me to build with him. So I sat down and helped him build a small house. We talked about nothing important, and it gave me a moment to breathe. That night, I got a message from Mara saying she would be arriving on Saturday to take Rowan for an evaluation. She wrote it like she was sending a calendar invite to a coworker. I stared at the screen for a long time. My first instinct was to tell her she had no right. My second instinct was to show her the messages she had sent by accident. But I held back because Raymond had told me to be careful and deliberate. I needed to act, not react. So I replied calmly and told her that any evaluation would need to be scheduled through the proper channels. She responded with a long paragraph accusing me of blocking her. Then she said she had spoken to her lawyer again. I did not reply. Instead, I saved the message. Later that night, after Rowan fell asleep, I sat on the living room floor with the lights off and let the silence settle around me. I kept thinking about what would happen if she pushed harder. Would she go to court? Would she try to show up at my door? Would she try to twist things so far that people believed her? The fear kept building until I leaned my head back against the wall and closed my eyes. I told myself I had to be ready. I told myself that protecting him meant thinking ahead. I told myself that this situation was not going to calm down. It was going to get worse before it got better. And if I wanted to keep him safe, I had to stay steady even when she tried to pull everything apart. That night I made a promise to myself that no matter how ugly things got, I would not let her take him. Not for money. Not for anything. I kept going through each day with this strange tension inside me because I knew Mara was waiting for her chance to strike, and every message she sent felt like a countdown. And even when she was quiet for a full day, I felt uneasy because silence from her never meant peace, it meant planning. And that fear stayed with me from the moment I woke up until the moment I fell asleep on the couch with the TV still playing. By the time Saturday came around, I had already talked to Rowan's counselor, his school case manager, and even one of his teachers who agreed to write a statement about his attendance and progress because she had seen how much better he had been doing since living with me. I never wanted to pull others into our family mess, but I knew I did not have the luxury of pride anymore. I had to gather everything that protected him. That morning, Rowan sat at the kitchen table drawing quietly while I checked my phone over and over. I did not want him to see how nervous I was, so I told him I was going to fix the loose bathroom cabinet door. I went in there just to breathe. At 10 in the morning, my phone buzzed. It was Mara. She said she was on her way. My stomach twisted. I told Rowan we might have a visitor, but I said it lightly, almost like it did not matter, because I did not want him to worry. He nodded but kept drawing flowers in a notebook, which he often did when he felt unsure about something. 15 minutes later, I saw her car pull up outside. She stepped out wearing a neat coat and carrying a folder like she was about to walk into a business meeting. She knocked. I opened the door, and she walked in without waiting for me to invite her. She glanced around like she was inspecting the apartment. She saw Rowan and said his name in a bright voice that felt fake. He looked up and gave her a small smile, but he did not get up to hug her. She walked over, touched his shoulder for a second, and then turned to me with this expression of someone pretending to be disappointed. She said we needed to talk privately. I told her whatever she had to say, she could say in front of him. She made a noise under her breath but followed me into the kitchen. She opened her folder and started listing off reasons she believed he should live with her. She said I worked too many hours. She said my apartment was too small. She said she could offer more structure. She said her lawyer recommended she move forward quickly so nothing became messy. I kept my hands on the counter to stop myself from shaking. I told her I had already spoken to family services. Her face froze for a second. I saw something shift behind her eyes. She asked what I told them. I said I told them everything. She asked what everything meant. So I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot of the message she had sent me by accident. Her eyes flicked to the screen. She went pale. Then she recovered fast and tried to laugh it off. She said it was a joke. She said her friend knew she was stressed and they joked to lighten the mood. I asked her why she said the money would cover half her rent. She said she did not remember writing that. I asked her why she said he was not hard to manage. She said people misinterpret things. I kept watching her lie so easily that it made my skin crawl. I told her that I would not let her take him. She said I did not have a choice. She said she would win. She said I was too young and too unstable to be his caregiver. She said she had paperwork proving she could provide more. I could feel anger rising in my throat, but I kept my voice steady. I told her that she should leave. She stepped closer to me, lowered her voice, and said that if I exposed her, she would drag the whole family into it and make me look like I had been hiding things. She said she knew how to twist a story. She said she knew how to get people on her side. She said I did not want this fight. Then she walked back into the living room, smiled at Rowan, told him she would see him soon, and left. After the door closed, I sat on the couch and tried to calm my breathing. Rowan looked at me and asked if we were okay. I said yes. He nodded slowly like he wanted to believe it but was not convinced. That night, after he fell asleep, I called Aunt Lara again. I told her exactly what happened. She told me to come to her house the next morning. So we drove out there. She lived in a small house near the edge of town with a warm kitchen that smelled like coffee and old wood. She hugged Rowan first, then hugged me. We sat at the table and I told her the whole story. She asked to see the messages. I showed her. She shook her head and said she always knew Mara cared more about appearances than people, but she never thought she would sink to this level. She said she needed to call a family friend who worked with a legal nonprofit. That gave me some hope. While she made the call, Rowan sat beside me reading one of her old nature books. When she returned, she said the friend could meet with us on Tuesday. I felt something loosen inside me again. It was not victory. It was the sense of having someone in my corner. Later that day, Rowan and I drove home. The sun was already setting. He watched the sky turn orange through the window. When we got back, he asked if Mara was going to take him away. I told him no. I told him I would not let that happen. He stared at me for a moment. Then he reached out and held onto my sleeve like he used to do when he was little. And I realized just how much he trusted me. That trust felt heavy, but it also felt clear. Protecting him was not a choice anymore. It was the only thing that mattered. And I knew I would have to stand firm because the next step in this fight would not be quiet. Mara would not back down. She would come harder. And I had to be ready for whatever came next. I woke up on Tuesday with my chest tight because the meeting with the legal nonprofit felt like the last solid step I had before everything turned into court hearings and accusations. And even though I tried to eat breakfast with Rowan like everything was normal, my hands kept shaking when I poured juice for him, and he noticed but did not say anything. He just kept tapping his pencil on the table like he was trying to help me steady my breathing without calling attention to it. We drove across town and parked in front of a small office with brown brick walls and a door that squeaked when I pushed it open, and a woman named Tara who was around 50 greeted us and told Rowan he could sit in the small waiting area with books while she talked to me alone. I could see him glance at me for permission. I nodded and he sat down with a book about astronomy. I followed her into a small room with walls covered in flyers about tenants' rights and fraud prevention. She sat across from me and asked me to start from the beginning, so I told her everything. Mom dying. Dad fading. Mara drifting in and out of the picture. Rowan living with me full time. Everything she had done. Every message she had ignored. Every threat she had sent since she decided she wanted custody. When I finished, I pulled out my phone and showed her the message she sent by accident. Tara leaned forward and read it slowly. She asked if I had backup copies. I told her yes. She nodded and said the message was strong evidence that Mara's motivation was financial. She asked about Rowan's routine, medical needs, school attendance, and emotional condition. I answered everything as clearly as I could. She took notes. Then she asked if I had any concerns about Mara's ability to care for him. I did not want to attack Mara unfairly, so I spoke honestly. I told her that Mara showed up only when something could benefit her. I told her she changed jobs often. I told her she moved apartments every few months. I told her she had left Rowan stranded twice when she forgot to pick him up. I told her he came home once with a bruise from falling because she left him unsupervised for hours. I told her he rarely smiled around her. Tara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said the situation was not hopeless. She said people like Mara often relied on intimidation and threats to make others freeze. She said as long as I kept records, stayed calm, and followed proper channels, I had a strong chance. I felt something shift inside me because it was the first time someone with authority told me I was not losing. She said the next step was preparing a formal response in case Mara filed paperwork. She asked if I had a support network. I mentioned Aunt Laura and a few friends. She said that helped. When the meeting ended, I thanked her and walked back to Rowan. He looked up from his book and gave me a small smile. I told him we were done. He asked if it went okay. I said yes. We walked outside together and got into the car. On the drive home, he talked about the planets he read about, and I listened, grateful for a moment of peace. But when we got home, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Mara. She said she had spoken with her lawyer, and that she was filing an emergency petition because she believed I was emotionally unstable. I stared at the message for a long time. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it shook my ribs. I sent the message to Tara. She replied quickly and told me not to respond to Mara at all. She told me to come back the next morning. So I spent the rest of the day trying to keep things normal for Rowan. We cooked dinner together. We watched a documentary he liked. But inside my mind I kept hearing Mara's threats. After he went to sleep, I sat in the living room and looked at the folder of documents I had built. I felt fear and anger and exhaustion all mixed together, but then I also felt something steadier rising beneath it. I had proof. I had support. I had built a routine and a home for him. She had lies. She had motives she could not hide. I kept reminding myself that truth mattered, even if it took time to show. The next morning, we went back to the office. Tara reviewed the message and shook her head. She said it was a scare tactic. She said people often made dramatic claims before filing. She drafted a statement for me that outlined my role in Rowan's life and the evidence of stability. I read it and felt something warm in my chest because it was the first time my efforts were written clearly in a way that made sense. Later that afternoon, Mara showed up at my building without texting first. She knocked hard on the door. I opened it slightly and kept myself between her and the inside so she could not see Rowan. She was angry. Her voice was sharp. She said I was blowing things out of proportion. She said I should have kept everything in the family. She said I made her look bad. I told her she did that herself. She tried to push past me. I blocked her and told her she needed to leave or I would call security. She stared at me like she did not recognize me anymore. Like she expected me to crumble the way I always used to. But I did not move. She stepped back and told me I would regret this. Then she walked away. When I closed the door, I felt my legs shake. Rowan peeked from the hallway and asked if she left. I said yes. He asked if she was mad. I told him she was upset, but I also told him that being upset did not mean she would win. That night, when I watched him fall asleep, I finally understood why the fear felt so heavy. It was not because of her. It was because of how much he meant to me. Protecting him was not just responsibility. It was love that had grown through years of meals and homework and late-night talks and quiet moments where he trusted me more than anyone else. I thought about everything ahead. Court. Questions. More threats. More waiting. But I also knew the truth was on my side. I knew I had people helping me. I knew he was safe with me. And as I sat there in the dark next to his bed, I promised myself again that no matter what she did, I would not let her break him, or use him, or turn him into a source of income. I would fight for him until the end. Even if it exhausted me. Even if it cost family ties. Even if it changed everything. Because I was the one who showed up. I was the one who stayed. And I was the one who would keep him grounded while the rest of the world tried to pull him in different directions.